In almost every culture around the world, there are those people and organizations who operate on the fringes of society. They use violence and fear to exert their influence over certain turfs of life, from neighborhood politics to illegal international trade. The Asian mafia, in particular, is one that seems to be largely overlooked by the world, but their power is felt heavily in their respective countries. The two most powerful Asian mafias that seem to have obtained the most power and control are the Chinese triads and the Japanese yakuza. Through means of extreme intimidation, these two gangs have expanded to many countries across Asia. But out of these two gang-affiliated superpowers, which one takes the cake as the more influential Asian mafia? We're going to explore this in today's video, so be sure to watch to the end. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to keep up with our latest videos. Now let's jump right into the video. Chinese triads. First off, let's just get to know this Asian mafia a little better. The Chinese triads are family-run organized crime gangs that are known to operate actively spanning many countries around the world, including China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, the Chinatowns in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many other countries. The triads are among some of the largest organized crime gangs in the world, with over 300,000 members, with over 150,000 in Hong Kong alone. The use of the term triad to describe this crime organization is a relatively modern English way to describe the gang. It was first used to describe the triangular symbols that were seen on the flags and banners used by the Hung clan, the clan from which the Chinese triads found some of their origins. The beginnings of the Chinese triads can be traced back to over 2,000 years ago. They emerged out of secret societies in opposition to the warlords that ruled China at the time. The societies that the triads have created have actually generated much respect as official community organizations. However, as well-intentioned as the triads may have been, there still emerged a string of criminal subcultures that became heavily involved in illicit activities such as gambling, extortion, drug peddling, and prostitution. During the 18th century, the triads were beginning to emerge from the Hung clan, a major force in the opium drug game. Today, the Chinese triads are known to grow and harvest their own heroin supply along the borders of Vietnam, Thailand, Burma, and Laos. The gang is known to produce about 80 tons of their own heroin annually, and they are known to have major distribution ports all throughout Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. Even within the triads exists a layer of tensions between competing gang turfs that have often turned violent and at times deadly, with the signature triad move being violent and horribly mutilating chop attacks with a meat cleaver. Victims of the triad are often horribly disfigured. If they do end up lucky enough to make it out of the gang's grip alive, the victims will often have a limb or two missing in order to send a message. Japanese yakuza. Some say that the Japanese yakuza is the true heir to the samurai. Both organizations are heavily influenced by a hierarchical system based upon honor and subservience, as well as a system that believes violence is an effective strategy to get things done. The yakuza are known by several names in Japan, including Gokudo, the Japanese police, and Bo-ryokudan, which literally translates to violence group. The yakuza, however, prefer to refer to themselves as Ninkyo Dantai, which translates to chivalrous organizations. 6 times the size of the Italian mafia, and considerably larger than the mafia in the United States, the yakuza consists of about 83,000 gang members that operate across 22 crime syndicates. It was estimated by police data that the yakuza contributed to a mob-controlled economy that was worth over 20 trillion yen, or about $242 billion. There has been a significant dip in membership of the yakuza, losing over 10,000 members between 1990 and 2010. However, despite this dip, the yakuza remains a significant and steady force to be reckoned with across Japan. The origin of the Japanese yakuza can be traced back to about 1612, a time when they were first referred to as the kabuki mono, or the crazy ones. The gang had a distinct look, donning bizarre fashion choices, distinct haircuts, and especially violent behavior with their longswords. Word didn't take long to spread around the country about the kabuki mono's presence and unsettling behavior. Often known as masterless samurai, many of the early members of the Japanese yakuza would band together to commit robberies around the country, plundering small cities and villages. Despite their violence, the yakuza were often trusted to serve the shogun, the military directors and unofficial rulers of Japan. The yakuza are heavily romanticized in Japanese culture, with many believing them to be Robin Hood-like in the way that they serve their communities. However, this romanticization is very ill-informed, as the Yakuza are typically not ones to give back to the poor without expecting something in return. And if you don't deliver on that return, the consequences could be deadly. How are they similar? The main similarities that can be found between the Yakuza and the Chinese triads are their distinct family style of system. Both the Yakuza and the Chinese triad strongly believe in a strong fraternal brotherhood, where everybody looks out for each other like family. Within both organizations exists a hierarchy of this family structure that consists of the Godfather, or Dragon Head for the Chinese triads, up top, with everyone falling beneath him as the brothers or children of the gang. The Godfathers up top will give these brothers and children of the gang advice in terms of protection and help. In return, the members of both the Yakuza and the triads are expected to pledge undying loyalty to their respective organizations in both good and bad times, just like in a real family structure. The Yakuza and triads appreciate a very traditional way of doing things. This is why when both organizations are bringing in new members, they will often implement very formal ceremonies into the initiation process. New members of the Yakuza will drink a cup of sake to formalize the bond between the Godfather and the other members to be as strong as blood. This is done in front of the Japanese Shinto gods to make the bond even stronger in the higher realms. The Chinese triads, on the other hand, are a bit more theatrical with their initiation process. During initiation ceremonies, a rooster is often sacrificed, and blood is drawn from the new initiate's fingers to symbolize the new blood relationship between the Godfather and existing members. Most distinctly, both the Yakuza and the Chinese triads are heavily engaged in extreme violence and a heap of illicit activity that includes racketeering, extortion, gambling, drug peddling, prostitution rings, and gun smuggling. That's not including all the physical harm they bring to people who do not comply with them. Neither the Yakuza nor the Chinese triads are afraid of committing violent acts on people, from rape to body mutilation to straight-up murder. Both of these gangs have enough power in their respective societies to remain nearly untouchable for their crimes. The major differences. Although the Yakuza and the Chinese triad seem to have much in common with their position of power within their countries and their ways of getting things done, there are very distinct differences as well. Most obviously, the Japanese Yakuza membership numbers pale in comparison to the Chinese triads. There is an almost 200,000 member difference between the two, with the Chinese triad comprising over 300,000 members as of 2015. And although both crime organizations favor brotherhood, the triads are far less strict in terms of structure and discipline. Not all triad members are gangsters, and not all gangsters in Japan are triad members. Although it would seem that the very dramatic initiation process triad members are put through would indicate a more serious loyalty, it just appears to be mostly for show. The Yakuza are not so lenient when it comes to structure and discipline. Because numbers are significantly smaller than the Chinese triads, loyalty is expected tenfold. The smaller the community, the stronger the commitment that is expected from the members. Because their numbers are so large, triad members are more often than not inexperienced, disorganized young criminals with low lives. The Yakuza, on the other hand, are oftentimes more sophisticated gangsters, and the process of initiation is more discriminating. Additionally, the Chinese triads didn't start out as a criminal organization. The triads started out as a legal organization meant to express dissatisfaction against the warlords of the time of the organization's conception. The triads originally had positive intentions for China. However, as time moved forwards, the organization became increasingly involved in illicit behavior to maintain power and control over the communities. On the other hand, the Yakuza was always a crime-based organization, coming out of the gate wielding longswords and wreaking havoc on communities across Japan for over 400 years. The Yakuza have always stayed true to their original intentions, which was to be powerful, violent, and feared across the nation. So, who has the most power? In terms of numbers, the triads are far more powerful than the Yakuza. If you were to ask somebody this question, the answer is just obvious. But that assumption is purely based on face value, not necessarily taking into consideration the actual power that each organization holds. Yes, the triads are far larger in numbers, but their members are often novice gangsters, and the gang's organizational structure has far less discipline than the Yakuza. While smaller in size, the Yakuza's strict disciplinary structure makes for a far more well-oiled machine that has allowed for a rapid expansion of operation in the past 20 years, despite a significant drop in membership. The Yakuza have cultivated more respect for themselves because their initiation process is more discriminating than the Chinese triads. This has allowed the Yakuza to gain favor from official government personnel. Politicians who are running for office will sometimes seek out Yakuza to protect them on their campaign trail and to sometimes intimidate their opponents. So although many people will have differing opinions on who is the more powerful Asian mafia, the Yakuza are by far the more powerful, more sophisticated gang. Who do you think is more powerful? Do you value power in numbers, or does the quality of the gangster make the gang more powerful? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for watching.